is what got them in trouble. Another way we promote optimal health is nutrition. Breast milk really is the best thing for infants up to a year of age. Breast milk is the best thing. The next best choice is formula, and both of those should be for the first year of life. That you shouldn't introduce any cow's milk until they're at least 12 months of age. Now, solid foods can start to be introduced between 4 and 6 months. Generally, if a baby's breastfed, they'll say 6 months. No need to introduce things earlier than 6 months. The earlier introduction actually has higher allergies, food allergies associated with it. The first things that we introduce are the iron fortified cereals, and this is because, remember, they're running out of mom's stores of iron, so we start giving these iron fortified cereals. Rice cereals generally the first one because it has the lowest amount of allergies, and then we can go to the other cereals. Whenever we introduce something new, we ought to introduce one food at a time to make sure there's no allergy, and introduce it, give a little bit every day for 4 to 7 days, and then go to a new food. If you introduce 5 new foods at once, you have no idea if the child has an allergy, which one it is that they're allergic to. One thing I was going to say on the rice cereals, a baby really shouldn't have juice prior to the 4 to 6 months, and they really don't need a lot of juice and really shouldn't have water. But when you start using the rice cereals, or the infant cereals, mixing that with a little bit of juice, the vitamin C in the juice helps with the iron absorption. So it actually is a good there. And then weaning. Most pediatricians like to see kids starting to be weaned from a bottle in particular by the time they're about a year, and that's because of cavities. Breastfeeding, you have a lot more variation. Some women, breastfeed until kids are several years old, but most kids are ready to start using a cup. And if they're seeing other people use the cup, the rest of the family, they're usually interested in trying a cup by the time they're 8-9 months old. And so weaning off of breast or bottle when they're a year or shortly after that is usually reasonable. Sleep. We started this back to sleep campaign because we found that most SIDS cases happened when babies were sleeping prone on their stomachs. And once that really went into effect and was really well publicized, we had far less cases of SIDS. So it does make a difference. Sleep problems, I am not the person to give you advice on this because my kids were not good sleepers. But one of the things is to have a bedtime routine so that the child knows bedtime is coming. And when they're drowsy, put them in the crib. Don't wait till they're sound asleep, so that they fall asleep in the same setting they're going to be in all night. They don't kind of wake halfway up to roll over and all of a sudden it feels different because they were held and now they're laying alone. Some families, though, are going to have different ideas and may have a family bed. Everybody sleeps together. That's not common in American culture. Okay, I didn't finish the idea of graduated extinction. This would be the parent lets the child cry at night, and generally they say a child should be, 6 months, 4 to 6 months before you do this. But let them cry, go in and just reassure them, but don't pick them up, don't rock them, don't do the things that are going to put them back to sleep. Just say, you're okay, mommy's here, mommy loves you, good night, and leave. And you start out doing that every 5 minutes. And then the next night you make it every 10 minutes. And then the next night, so you gradually make it longer between the times when the mom goes, or whoever it is, goes in and reassures the child. And that's that concept of graduated extinction. Okay, immunizations. This is your next big memorizing from this chapter. You need to memorize the immunization table. Personally, I like the way it's written in ATI. I find it a little easier to memorize than the one in the book, but either way, the schedule in the book is on page 352. In ATI, I can't remember what chapter it is, but it's one of the chapters in there. There are two different groups that make the recommendations: the Advisory Committee on Immunizations, or Immunization Practices, and that works with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Then there's also the Committee on Infectious Diseases, which is part of the American Academy of Pediatrics. So between the two, those are the people who make the recommendations. Now, every state then sets their own standards. So you may have slight differences between what your kids got and what the book says, and that would be because different schools, it's mostly the schools have requirements, and those may be different in different states. And right now we're giving everybody pertussis regardless of how old they are, because we've had a big increase, a big outbreak of pertussis. So there can be some regional differences too. But memorize the schedule. That's the national recommendation, and then different territories will sometimes, different states or regions will make some changes. With giving immunizations, we are going to try and do atraumatic care, so we're always going to be thinking the smallest size needle and shortest that will do the job we need done, and try and use those other things: distraction, non-nutritive sucking on infants. I've not really read this anywhere other than in our textbook, but I like it talks about pressure, that if you push on the site for a few seconds, then let go and do the shot right there where you're pushing on, that kids seem to have less pain. I think that's very simple to do and really worth trying. Okay, here's just more recommendations where you can look up online the current recommendations from the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control, and then American Academy of Pediatrics. The red book is kind of the one you hear the American Academy of Pediatrics talk about. That's their, I don't know, the book that they turn to. There's also morbidity and mortality reports put out by the CDC, and then California Department of Public Health. This is where the public school requirements are set. And again, each state, even though there's a national recommendation, each state can make its own choices and vary them a little bit. And California actually requires a couple of shots that aren't necessarily required in other states. So you get a few variations there. When you give vaccines, should a child have a reaction, you have to fill out this vaccine adverse event reporting system. And they try and keep records of how many kids have bad reactions to vaccines to really be accurate about how safe they are, how likely a child is to get sick from the illness as opposed to the vaccine. And yes, it's true, some kids will get sick from the vaccine, but they are good. I mean, the health department looks at these, and you are far less likely to have a bad reaction to the vaccine than you are to getting the illness and having a really severe case by not being vaccinated. Our vaccines are much safer than not being vaccinated. When a child does get a vaccine, we have to give the parent information, and the parents have to understand what they're getting and agree to it. And when we give a vaccine, we have to keep track of the lot number. So if there is a reaction and it turns out they were all from the same lot, they know there was a problem with those vaccines. So you have to track that. For this age, for our infants up to a year, we're talking about some of the injuries that we want to try and prevent, the likely injuries. aspiration of foreign objects. These can be foods or toys. So, this age they put stuff in their mouth. If you have a toy where a little wheel could pop off, that would be just the right size to go down their airway, and they choke on it, they can't breathe. Those are the sort of things we want to not let these children have, or kids this age, and educate the family, that the Legos that the 5-year-old is playing with need to be played with behind closed doors where the infant can't get to them. Another big problem are balloons, and latex balloons are the Mylar ones aren't really a problem. It's the latex balloons. The years I worked in Peds ICU, we had kids aspirate all sorts of stuff, some of it just crazy, and they have a little trouble breathing, but they are relatively okay. They go to surgery, they put down a scope, they take it out, and the kid is just fine and goes home, except balloons. Saw big kids die on balloons, not just little kids. They blow it up and it pops and they go, ah, and aspirate it. So I've seen kids of varied ages die from balloons. Those latex balloons they're just bad. Motor vehicle accidents or injuries, so not just the car accident, but being hit on a mom's jogging and pushing the stroller or something, being hit by a car as well. Motor vehicle injuries are the leading cause of I think of death, but it doesn't say that here, but between ages 1 and 9, and that can be being hit as well as being inside the car. Falls, especially that first year, falling off of changing tables, putting the infant seat up on top of a table too close to the edge and the child wiggles enough that it knocks it off. Walkers, they've really quit making walkers. They have those, you'll see them around the hospital where they sit in them and they're upright and they can bounce a little bit and they can go around in a full circle, and there's things to play with all the way around it, but they don't move. Back in the old days they had them with little wheels where the child could push, and too many kids went down steps and all sorts of falls from those. Poisoning. Kids this age aren't quite as bad as your 3-year-olds at finding medicine and eating it, but they will. One of the most common reasons for poisoning is it was poured into something that looked like it was edible, like pouring a poisonous liquid into a cup. Mom pours the bleach into the cup, sets it down, but doesn't put it into the washer like she meant to, and a kid comes by and picks up the cup. So some poisonings can be prevented just by not using anything that could look like a standard cup, or make sure it's in the container that shows it's a dangerous substance, and then also having it locked so that that curious 2 or 3-year-old doesn't find it or get into it. Burns, hot water burns, also sunburns. They say you shouldn't use sunscreen on kids less than 6 months, so you really should just keep them out of the sun. We really don't want them getting sunburnt, and after that 6 months, keeping sunscreen on them is good. Fires, electric plugs or wires can all cause burns. Drowning, bathtub, pool, toilet, just a bucket of water. It does not take much water for a child to drown.